Imagine you're biting into a crisp, fresh tomato right now. Or maybe you're savoring a perfectly cooked steak, perhaps for dinner tonight.
Okay.
What if, entirely unbeknownst to you, with every delicious bite, you were also ingesting? Well, a lab-designed genetic message. A subtle instruction intended to train an immune system.
Wow.
It sounds like the plot of a near-future thriller, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, yeah. And for a moment, it feels like we've stepped right into, some kind of speculative science fiction narrative.
Right.
But the truth is, this isn't fiction anymore. This is a topic being actively, intensely explored in research labs around the world right now.
Really?
We're talking about the rapid development and potential application of mRNA vaccines, not just for human health, as we've recently seen,
Of course.
but also for the animals we rely on for food and, yes, potentially even the very plants we grow.
So today, our mission with this deep dive is really to pull back the curtain on this cutting-edge science. We want to explore what aspects of mRNA technology in our food supply are current reality, what's still in the realm of speculation, and most critically for you, our listener, what the far-reaching implications of this technology could mean.
For your health.
Exactly. For your health, for global food systems, and, well, for the future of how we produce and consume what we eat. We're going to unpack this together right now.
Okay, sounds good. So to truly grasp the conversation we're about to have, maybe let's start with the fundamental building block.
Yeah.
What exactly is mRNA?
Good idea.
mRNA, or messenger ribonucleic acid, it's essentially a temporary single-use instruction manual for your cells.
Like a memo.
Yeah, think of it as a brief, urgent memo dispatched from the cell's main library, the DNA in the nucleus. It carries a specific set of instructions to the cell's protein-making factories.
And then what happens?
Well, once those instructions are delivered and the protein is made, the mRNA molecule itself quickly degrades. It's designed to be a transient signal. It doesn't stick around.
And in the context of vaccines, this is incredibly powerful, isn't it? Because in that form, that mRNA message carries the genetic code for a very specific antigen.
Exactly. That's typically a unique protein found on the surface of a virus or maybe a bacterium.
Okay.
Your cells receive these instructions. They diligently produce that particular protein for a short period.
Right.
And crucially, your immune system then learns to recognize it as foreign. So if the actual virus or bacteria ever shows up,
Your body's ready?
your body's defenses are already primed and ready to fight it off without ever having to encounter the live pathogen itself. Precisely. And the reason this technology has garnered so much attention, especially recently, lies in its remarkable speed and adaptability.
That seems key.
It really is. Unlike traditional vaccine development, which, can be a slow, painstaking process involving growing inactivated viruses or purifying proteins.
Takes ages sometimes.
Right. mRNA vaccines are much faster to design and manufacture. You can quickly swap out the genetic code for different antigens. This agility is exactly why mRNA technology became the absolute go-to platform during the unprecedented global response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, I remember that.
Its ability to be rapidly adapted to new variants, allowing for swift development of new jabs, was nothing short of a game changer in public health.
No question. So given this incredible adaptability and speed, where else are scientists and agricultural researchers looking to apply this powerful tool?
Well, this might surprise a lot of people. The next frontier for mRNA technology seems to be large-scale livestock farming.
Livestock, okay.
Yeah, we're now seeing significant research and early trials into its use for some of the most common and, frankly, devastating animal diseases.
Like what?
Like foot and mouth disease, classical swine fever, and a whole range of highly contagious avian viruses that can literally wipe out entire animal populations,
Wow.
causing immense suffering and, of course, catastrophic economic loss.
I can imagine.
So the stated goals for deploying mRNA in herds and flocks are pretty compelling, at least from an agricultural and economic standpoint.
Right.
The primary objectives are robust disease prevention, which means significantly reducing the risk of widespread outbreaks that can just cripple industries and disrupt food supply chains.
Which we've seen happen.
Absolutely. Think about avoiding the enormous agricultural and economic losses that result from such events, including, the necessity of mass pulls.
Right. It's always difficult.
From this perspective, mRNA offers a new promise for maintaining stability and maybe mitigating the profound impact of these animal epidemics.
And here's where things get really interesting, and for some, quite controversial. Because it's not just about a new type of vaccine, right? it's potentially a paradigm shift in how we administer these.
That's a huge part of the discussion. Some research is actively exploring delivery methods that go far beyond traditional individual injections.
Such as?
Imagine this. These mRNA platforms could potentially be administered via feed.
In the food itself?
Yes, or mixed into water supplies for an entire herd, or even aerosolized and sprayed into barns.
Sprayed. Like an air freshener.
Sort of, yeah. Making vaccination on a truly massive scale far simpler and, crucially, less labor-intensive than ever before.
Wow.
It's a potential logistical game-changer for large-scale operations.
Okay. I can see the appeal for big agriculture.
And from an agricultural and public health perspective, the perceived benefits of such widespread application are significant and multifaceted.
What are they highlighting?
Well, we could potentially see a drastic reduction in mass calls during outbreaks, which is, a major ethical improvement and an economic win for farmers.
Sure.
There's also the promise of reduced reliance on antibiotics in livestock. That's a huge global concern as we face the rising threat of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, often called superbugs.
Definitely a problem.
And of course, there's the hope of decreased viral spillover from animals to humans, preventing future zoonotic diseases that could jump from animal populations into our own, like we've seen with influenza strains and other viruses.
Okay, all of those potential upsides sound incredibly promising. They seem to offer solutions to some really long-standing challenges in agriculture.
They do.
But, and it feels like there's a profound but here, despite its impressive capabilities, mRNA technology, particularly at a population scale, is still remarkably young.
That's the crux of it.
And, critically, incompletely understood in its long-term effects. We're talking about a tool whose large-scale application in humans only really began during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Exactly. What's fascinating and, frankly, a bit unsettling here is that this relative novelty means the long-term consequences of widespread mRNA application, especially across an entire food chain, are still largely unknown.
We just don't have time data yet.
We simply haven't had the decades of observation typically required for such foundational technologies. And look, post-rollout surveillance in humans has, in fact, documented a range of adverse events in millions of individuals. These include things like inflammatory and autoimmune responses and even cardiovascular complications. Now, these aren't speculative claims or just anecdotal reports. These facts have been meticulously published in peer-reviewed scientific literature and rigorously tracked in pharmacovigilance data worldwide. That's the critical real-world safety information gathered systematically after a product is released.
Right, the post-market surveillance.
Exactly. This extensive body of evidence leads many in the scientific community to argue that the technology, despite its promise, warrants significant caution before we think about broader, less controlled applications, like in the food supply.
And when you consider that track record, however brief it might be, the idea of applying this still relatively untested approach to our entire food chain, well, before we have decades of comprehensive real-world safety data, it truly feels like an enormous public health gamble.
It's a significant leap.
It makes me think of lessons we've learned, often the hard way, from past agricultural practices. Are there historical parallels we should be mindful of here, even as we see the potential benefits?
Oh, absolutely. The parallels are stark, and they really offer a cautionary tale.
Like what?
Think back to the unintended consequences we've already seen. For example, the widespread use of growth hormones in cattle. That led to concerns about endocrine disruption in humans, essentially, messing with our hormone systems and unintended changes in meat composition.
I remember that controversy.
Or consider the routine, often prophylactic use of antibiotics in livestock. We've now discovered that has profoundly contributed to the rise of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, those superbugs that threaten global public health.
Right.
So this raises a critical question. In our push to prevent every potential animal disease outbreak with mRNA, are we risking over-vaccinating livestock? Kind of like we did with past antibiotic overuse.
Interesting parallel.
Could we inadvertently create new evolutionary pressures on microbial populations, leading to unforeseen consequences or maybe the selection of new, perhaps more resilient strains of pathogens?
That's a powerful point. So the concern isn't just about the technology itself, but the sheer scale of its potential application to our food system.
Exactly.
And the potential for unintended biological consequences. And mechanistically, how exactly would this work in terms of potential human exposure? When livestock get vaccinated with mRNA, their cells make the protein.
Right. They briefly produce the antigen protein, triggering the animal's immune response.
But what happens after that? Well, the precise worry for us, the consumers.
That's the critical mechanistic concern. When livestock are vaccinated with mRNA, their muscle or immune cells briefly produce that specific antigen, the protein designed to trigger immunity in the animal.
Okay.
Now, the mRNA itself, as we said, it's designed to degrade rapidly, usually within hours or a few days. So the concern isn't really about the mRNA molecule persisting in the meat.
So it's not the mRNA we'd eat.
Probably not, or in negligible amounts. The critical point is that these newly synthesized antigenic proteins, the actual structure is designed to elicit that immune reaction the animal might persist, even in trace amounts, in edible tissues until slaughter.
Ah, I see.
It's these persistent proteins, not the mRNA itself, that could theoretically interact with our human immune system upon consumption.
So what would happen then?
Well, current vaccine science suggests these proteins would likely be digested like any other protein and probably wouldn't survive cooking.
Okay, that sounds reassuring.
But real-world exposure, especially with repeated lifetime consumption from an entire food supply, that remains an open question. We simply don't have multi-decade human studies on the cumulative effect of ingesting these specific novel proteins from the food chain.
So it's the unknown long-term effect.
Exactly. It raises questions about potential sensitivities or maybe subtle cumulative effects over time, especially perhaps for individuals with predispositions to autoimmune conditions or allergies.
Okay, that clarifies the concern around animal products. So we've talked about animals, but this technology isn't confined to the animal kingdom, is it?
No, not at all.
Let's extend this discussion beyond livestock and consider mRNA's surprising potential application in plants. How would that even work? And what are the implications if the vegetables on our plate are engineered this way?
Well, the molecular mechanism in plants is remarkably similar in concept. Researchers are actively experimenting with encapsulating mRNA in tiny nanoparticles.
Nanoparticles, okay.
Designed to be taken up by plant cells. Once inside, these plant cells are then prompted to express a protective protein.
Like what?
For instance, a protein that could confer resistance against a specific plant virus or maybe even a pest.
So the plant makes its own pesticide, essentially.
Or its own antiviral, yeah. This could theoretically reduce the need for traditional pesticides or enhance crop resilience. Imagine a tomato plant that vaccinates itself against blight using its own internal mRNA instructions.
That's quite something.
Mm.
And if you were to eat such a plant, especially, say, a raw vegetable,
then you would indeed be ingesting that newly expressed protein product.
right?
Now, for many, perhaps most individuals, this might have zero discernible effect. It'd just be digested like any other plant protein.
But
However, for certain sensitive individuals, maybe those with pre-existing autoimmune tendencies, inflammatory conditions, or certain allergies, it raises a profound question.
which is?
Could ingesting these novel plant-expressed proteins, even in minute amounts, prime or even trigger an immune response? The human immune system, as we know, is incredibly complex.
It is.
It doesn't always play by the textbook, sometimes reacting in unpredictable ways to novel proteins it encounters.
So another area where we just don't have the long-term data.
Precisely.
This brings us to a major point of concern for many people, which is transparency. This isn't just theoretical science anymore, you're saying.
Not entirely, no. Early stages, but moving forward.
And currently, our food labeling laws, they just haven't caught up with these rapid advancements in genetic-based livestock or plant immunizations, have they?
Not even close. There's a significant lag.
What this means in practical terms is that without mandatory, clear disclosure on product labels, you, the consumer,
you listening,
would have absolutely no way of knowing if your salad, your steak, your dairy, or any other food item came from sources that had been treated or engineered with this new mRNA technology.
It's a significant gap in informed choice. A huge gap.
And that lack of transparency or the lagging regulatory framework leads us directly into a profound ethical quandary, doesn't it?
It really does.
Should the public have the inherent right to opt out of ingesting vaccine-derived products from their food, particularly when the long-term human health data is still being gathered and is, frankly, incomplete?
That's one side of it.
Or does the perceived greater good of preventing widespread animal disease and the significant economic devastation that comes with it justify broad population-level use without explicit consumer consent or even knowledge?
It's a classic tension, isn't it, between individual autonomy and societal benefit.
Yeah.
Look, from a purely medical and agricultural standpoint, the potential benefits in controlling livestock epidemics are undeniable and very real. The technology offers powerful tools to address significant challenges.
We acknowledge that.
However, it is absolutely crucial for us as clinicians and scientists to be honest and upfront about the existing gaps in our knowledge, especially concerning long-term safety data for indirect human exposure through the food supply.
We just don't have it.
We simply do not have those multi-decade studies that typically underpin widespread public health interventions. And I want to be clear, this conversation is emphatically not about being anti-vaccine in general.
Important distinction.
Absolutely. Rather, it's about demanding rigorous, comprehensive safety studies before any kind of large-scale commercial rollout, and ensuring that consumers have an informed choice. It's a lesson we've learned repeatedly throughout history, right? Once widespread adoption of such powerful technologies occurs, whether it was with growth hormones or the massive use of antibiotics in agriculture, reversing course becomes nearly impossible, even if unintended consequences emerge down the line.
Yeah, the genie's out of the bottle.
Exactly. We need these conversations and the research they inspire before widespread adoption, not scrambling to catch up afterwards.
So what should you, our listener, take away from this deep dive today? What are the key points?
Well, first, I think it's vital to understand that mRNA vaccines in agriculture are no longer just theoretical concepts confined to academic papers.
Right.
Early animal trials are actively underway across the globe. This is happening now, and the technology is rapidly advancing.
Okay. Point one, it's real and developing fast. What's next?
Second, a public dialogue is critically needed. A robust and informed conversation that brings together scientists, policymakers, farmers, and consumers before the commercial rollout of these powerful new technologies. Your voice, your questions, and your demand for information truly matter in shaping this future.
Okay. Public dialogue needed now. And third,
you should actively ask for transparency in food sourcing and labeling. Demand to know what's in your food, how it was produced, and the processes behind it.
so you can make truly informed choices for yourself and your family.
Precisely.
Okay, that's clear. So where are we going next time?
Well, on our next deep dive, we're going to explore another equally provocative topic: nanotechnology in everyday consumer products.
Oh, interesting.
We'll be asking what's already in your home, on your body, and even potentially inside your body that you might not even realize.
Okay, looking forward to that. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and always remember this core idea.
What's that?
The science that feeds us deserves the same rigorous scrutiny and thoughtful consideration as the science that treats us.